What's up, everybody? Welcome back to your favorite New York Jets subscription podcast, Badlands. I'm your host, Joe Caporoso, joined by Paul Kilgallen for post-game therapy. Not going to make Connor record at 2:30 or 3 in the morning after Thursday Night Football for the New York Jets, unfortunately losing to the New England Patriots. In the exact score I picked in the 12-pack, I finally got one exactly right. 27-14. I'm PK. I'm not mad. I feel like I should be madder, but this was kind of the game that I exactly expected from them, where they just don't have enough on offense, right? Like their top two receivers tonight, legitimately, they played Mitchell and Mechie as wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 were acquired within the last 10 days. Fields is comically limited as a passer, which was fully on display tonight. You know, they're rotating bodies in the secondary without Azareye'h Thomas, so Brownlee's playing a bit out of position. And look, they came out. They went right down the field. They scored. They were relatively in the game all the way until the end if Fields could get out of his own way. We'll get into it a lot more, but what's your initial reaction? I don't find myself furious at this loss. They kind of lost how I expected they would lose if they showed up to compete tonight, which they did. They didn't come out and lay down and die. This isn't the team from the Dallas game or the Buffalo game earlier in the year. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not mad, but I am disappointed. It's like that classic, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. Yes, they kind of did everything that I was asking for, which is like, don't get clowned, don't get embarrassed by the Patriots again on national TV on a night game. But kind of just like the way it went down was pretty frustrating. Like two pretty annoying drops, bad throws, combination of both from AD Mitchell. The drop by Ruckert at the end, the game was out of hand at that point, but just catch the ball, dude, get the first down. And it just felt like a lot of missed opportunities. They never really got Brees going. They didn't go back to running a screen with Brees at any point today. And Fields is just like, man, his brain's just like cooked. He's cooked. Yeah. And the absolute refusal to go to Tyrod is it's getting mystifying at this point. So it's just like, look, they didn't get clowned. Except for the one play with the fumble. I'm like dreading opening Twitter tomorrow to see if everybody locks in on that one, because that was kind of the game-turning moment there. They didn't get clowned. They didn't get embarrassed. They lost a close game. They did everything we were asking, but it's just like, man, there were kind of opportunities there to have it be even closer and to maybe be in a position at the end to try and steal a game. And so when you say we got out-talented, I think you're right. But even getting out talented, there were still a couple things you left on the table, which is frustrating. What I would have preferred, I guess, if we were going to lose, was to maximize the lack of talent that we had and really push it all the way to the end and be like, you know what? We're not as good as them, but we gave them a hell of a game anyway, right? And so, yeah, not mad, just disappointed.
Yeah, you feel like with league average quarterback play or even slightly below league average quarterback play in this one that you're right in it late and it's like a 3-point game and they've just left certain plays in the field. Mitchell.
Aren't you tired of saying that?
Yes, of course. I mean, especially when you're playing the Patriots, right? And the Patriots, are the mathematical favorite to be the number 1 seed in the AFC. But, you're watching them tonight. You're like, this isn't a buzzsaw. We're not that far away from hanging around in this game and throwing some punches. And the problem is you have a guy like Mitchell. He runs a beautiful stop and go route. You see all the talent, goes right by Christian Gonzalez. Not a perfect pass, but went right through his arms. And then you have another really nice play call from Tanner Engstrom on 3rd down. He gets open from the slot. Bad throw, yes, from Fields, still in his hands, doesn't catch it. He dropped another one. So you're like, okay, I kind of get why he was started on this trade now, but he's going to be tantalizing with his talent because he's open. And who else is getting open on this team? Good to see some moments from Mechie, who I think could be a useful player. It's good they're giving these guys burn because why not? Let's see what you have with them. But they just left plays in the field. It wasn't their smartest game they played. Brownlee, when he's forced out of position, you could see the penalties becoming a problem with some of the holding. Yep. I thought the Stevens one was a little borderline. I thought Brownlee's personal foul was a little borderline, but you got to assume you're not going to get those calls on the road, right? And don't have the borderline mistakes. They've done a good job cutting back on them, but they had a few tonight that hurt. The defensive line, they started to get there a little bit. McDonald drew a holding penalty. Jermaine had a sack. It looked a little way, way too easy, for Drake May at times tonight. He's just kind of carving up this defense up and down with people wide open. And look, with the quarterback situation, I do think we'll see Tyrod at some point sooner rather than later. I do think even we may see Brady Cook at some point when we get into the bowels of the final remaining games. My guess is the internal thought was we have won 2 games in a row. It's a short week. We're not going to make a quarterback change in a short week. Also, we did the thing where we brought in Tyrod at halftime and he threw 2 picks and we lost anyway. So, like, we tried it didn't work. I'm not agreeing with that, right? Like, you see how the game script's playing out. It's 14-7 at halftime. You're in it. I'm game to try a guy who could throw forward passes and just see what happens. And Tyrod's eventually going to get hurt. He got hurt when he played last time and wasn't able to play, or he would have started against the Bengals. I do wonder with the 10 days if they say, man, like this guy, he's just not seeing it. And he's throwing 3-yard crossers into double coverage on 3rd and 12. And it's just so hard to compete that way. You have to be perfect in everything else, especially when you're playing teams with more talent. And Baltimore will have more talent than the Jets, as will many of the other teams are playing the rest of the way. So if you're going to make a switch, you have a mini bye week now. This would be the time where you would say, all right, we're gonna play Tyrod for a few games, see how it looks. Does it have to be permanent for the rest of the season? If they don't make it before the Baltimore game, that might just be like, look, like we're going to be a certain type of running team. We're going to be stubborn, and then like quietly whispering, it's not the end of the world if we lose these games, but we think there's more things we can do with Fields, and we don't trust Tyrod's leg right now anyway, so it's closer than you guys think it is. I'm not arguing that. Like, I would just play Tyrod against Baltimore because I think you have a locker room to answer to, and you want to be able to evaluate Mechie and Mitchell and Arian Smith. He's out there being a track star and getting 0 targets again. Like, you just miss out on certain things that from an evaluation perspective. And Fields, man, we should not be this desensitized to the starting quarterback having 23 yards passing at halftime. Like that's not normal. And it's every single week now. So do you think they will make that change? Not do you want them to, but do you think they will make the change before Baltimore when you have 10 days?
I think at a certain point, it just hits critical mass with the locker room, like you said, where you owe it to the other, 52 dudes to like, hey, I gotta put you in a better position. The frustrating thing about me that it hasn't happened yet is like Fields is not a person that you drafted, right? So you don't have that hanging over you. You didn't make a long-term commitment to him, so you don't have that hanging over you. And it's not a physical limitation. So, like, this isn't the type of thing where you have to sit him down and say, like, hey, kid, I don't think you can play in this league, because that's a tough conversation to have with a guy that you want to be your quarterback. This is a kind of a perfect scenario for a sit down for a month and collect yourself, because he's obviously he's terrified. He can't think, he can't process anything. He's forced, like the one play that he threw to Isaiah Williams, I think it was early in the 4th quarter. And he had him, and he was open for like 4. I counted 4 seconds that I saw him open. Right. Yeah. And and he threw it so late. And so that's the type of thing where it's like, hey, like, we're going to sit you down. This is not forever. But if you want to have a future in this league, you probably need to press pause for a little while and figure out some kind of rehabilitation plan for your mental. Because right now it's not happening for you on the field, but you have all the physical tools to play this position. So it's kind of the perfect scenario for a benching. And that's why it's really frustrating for me to see like the lack of willingness and the gun shyness to not just pull the trigger on this and be like, hey, like, this is what's going to happen. We're going to make a plan for you. We're going to be working with you during that month. But for now, let's take the game planning off your plate. Let's give it to Tyrod, who's a veteran, who's been in the league for 15 plus years, and he knows what he's doing. We're going to make Cook QB2 for a little while just so you can focus on your rehabilitation plan. And we'll do that. The other thing that I think is really interesting, like you said, with Arian Smith running all those routes tonight, is like, what do they think of him that Mechie and Mitchell just completely leapt over him and
Isaiah Williams? That's who's getting the handoffs on the jet sweeps and the reverses, not him. And the screens and everything.
3 receivers who, between the 3 of them, have like 1, 2, call it 8 games played between 3 receivers. And we're 10 games into a season. And all 3 of them leapt over him on the depth chart. So that's pretty interesting.
It's actions speak louder than words, right? And they're playing over him and getting targets over him. And then, they went back to having Barron active tonight, and you saw again very clearly why he can't play. And I get like, hey, it's a draft pick. Try to salvage him, get him the reps. But we don't have to go back down the day 3 route. But you could kind of see that some of these things aren't clicking. And I'll give them, credit, because if Isaiah Williams is just better than him, play him over him. And right now he is better than him. And obviously so are Mechie. And I think even Mitchell, for the flaws, Mitchell's going to get a lot of targets the rest of the way. He's going to make some plays. He's going to drop a lot of passes. And that's why you count on him to be like a role player, not your actual like wide receiver 2 long-term. And you go draft one next year or sign one. So I don't have a problem with him getting the playing time now, because why not? I don't think we're going to see Garrett the rest of the season, nor do I think we should. There's no reason to push him in week 15 when you're 3-10 or whatever you are. Let him recover. Defensively, they're flying around. They're competing. They're tackling. They're just like not well coached. They have a very basic scheme that's easy to carve up. Any smart offensive coordinator is hammering the edge of this defense whenever Clemens is out there, who's still playing way too much. And it's not his fault. He's just being set up to fail, right? And he's playing. I know Will McDonald's a little banged up. He was questionable in this game, but you saw the Patriots go at that edge all the time, and easy way to move the football. And even if guys are in the right spot, they just don't have like the talent profile to do what they need to in this basic scheme. Because Tanner Engstrand could coach. He had a great opening script. He had a couple other plays that his guys left in the field. It wasn't perfect. Of course, I want to see Brees more in the passing game. There's also just certain things that Fields is so bad at that you just can't do. With Wilkes, it's like, I know you have some talent limitations, but the stubbornness and how easy it is to coach against your defense, I just don't think that's going to translate in today's NFL and competing with Buffalo and New England and Baltimore and the Chiefs and these other teams you're going to be going against. And so I didn't leave like furious at any individual on the defense. I think it was a step back for Sherwood. He didn't look as good as he did the last 2 weeks. I thought Quincy was fine, was flying around. Brownlee, I've been a little disappointed with the last 2 weeks, but he's also playing out of position right now with Azaria's injury. Thought Malachi Moore was fine. Thought Tony Adams is still terrible. I thought the defensive line did what they could with their current collection of players, not picking on Barron and Clemens any more than I need to. And I don't know. I got the game I expected tonight. They look like a normal bad team now. They don't look like an embarrassing train wreck. They look like a normal bad team who's going to beat other bad teams, who can throw some punches and hang around with really good teams, but probably isn't going to beat them. And look, if they're playing Tyrod, could they beat New England at home in week 17? Yeah, maybe. Maybe if a couple things break their way and it's like extra cold out and the weather is rough. I'll say they're better their last 4 to 5 games than they were their first 4 to 5 games, which is generally what I asked for. So I don't want to be happy that we lost to the Patriots by, 13 points, but you could kind of see the progress here. And now we also have a gazillion draft picks. I mean, they played the Patriots tonight. It doesn't count anymore, but this team just lost Quinnen. They just lost Sauce. They also are Zaria Thomas and Garrett Wilson tonight. I mean, if I would have told you in September, when the Jets play the Patriots on Thursday Night Football, their top 3 receivers would be Isaiah Williams, A.D. Mitchell, and John Mechie, none of whom were on the roster in September. And their starting corners would basically be like Isaiah Oliver, Stiggers, Brownlee, who wasn't on the roster. It's a bit of a crazy transitional situation. So what did you think about the broader team beyond that?
When you put it in that kind of perspective, it almost seems to elevate kind of the performance tonight. Like when you zoom out a little bit and you realize what the state of this roster is and how almost like none of these guys who are contributing tonight have been here very long. And we're not here at the beginning of the season. They did not have camp with the Jets. That does kind of make it a little bit more impressive. I think I want to hit on a few things you said. So let's start with A.D. Mitchell. There was somebody who called into the pregame who said, I want to see 10 to 15 A.D. Mitchell targets tonight. And kind of, I didn't say it live, but in my head, I was like, I don't know if that's going to happen. That's like a lot of targets for A.D. Mitchell. They kind of did that. And I think having watched it tonight, I think I'm okay with it. And I want to continue to see that moving forward. Like, if his problem is going to be drops in focus, I think the only way you fix that is game reps, right? And you just keep feeding him the ball. And eventually you'll either hit a point where you're like, okay, dude, are you comfortable now? Have you figured this out? Or it's like, you're never going to figure it out, but now you know, right? So I would say keep feeding him the ball nonstop. I do realize this is an old man take, but as the 2 oldest people at Badlands, this is our job. I have a problem with Steve Wilkes smiling and joking around with people walking onto the field after that game. He had a bad performance calling the defense, and I just don't appreciate it. And I don't think Aaron Glenn would be out there smiling and joking around with Mike Vrabel. I didn't watch that closely. I didn't look at Aaron Glenn, but I saw Steve Wilkes laughing and it bothered me. And I'll leave it there. Tony Adams, I realize you're trying to make a play on that deep ball with the interception. You just have to have some awareness, dude. Know where your teammates are. Stiggers was right there for the pick. Yeah. And not only did you break up the pick, but you hurt him. And then at the end, not covering the spread aside, if you're trying to win that game, you take the 3 points. Yeah. And then you try to get the ball back. So that's a frustrating decision. And right before Ruckert dropped that ball, I was like, hey, it looks like we have 2 tight ends now and Ruckert's pretty good. And so I should just stop talking during games, I think. But yeah, I mean, to go back to how you kicked it to me, like when you zoom out a little bit and realize what the state of things is here and that Quinnen and Sauce are gone and Garrett Wilson's not playing and Justin Fields is as bad as he is, like they hung around with the Patriots tonight. They lost by 13. Okay.
Yep. That was right on what the spread was. It, narrowly, Vegas always knows, but yeah, I think we're going to have a few more of these games the rest of the way, right? They're 2-8. They got 7 left. You have 4 games left against teams that I will say will be coin flips that you should have a chance to win, right? When you're playing the Saints and you're playing the Dolphins and you're playing the Falcons, and I would even include the Jaguars in that. The other 3, you get another shot at the Pats, you get another shot at the Bills, and this Ravens game where the Ravens, we know what their talent situation is, even if the record doesn't reflect it, and playing there and playing Lamar Jackson, most likely, although he seems to be banged up again, it's a different kind of challenge. I have no good memories of the Jets playing in Baltimore. I feel like they've lost every game there in horrific fashion. I don't even want to think about it.
I think for a long time they had a similar thing going on with Baltimore, like they had with the Eagles until we beat them a couple years ago, where they had never beaten Baltimore for a period of 15 or 20 years.
Yeah, it's not good memories. I go all the way back to Vinny's 99-yard interception return, trying to make the playoffs. But anyway, that's we have 10 days to talk about it. So I don't think there should be any crazy overreactions to this game. The big discourse is going to be around quarterback. And I think you can make a very fair case that it's 10 days. We're going to try something different with Tyrod. I think there's a reasonable chance that happens. It's probably 50-50 in my mind. They're hard to predict, what this coaching staff is going to do. I think you're going to continue to see these guys get a lot of burn at receiver, which I think is good. I think Brees was fine tonight. He didn't get a ton of opportunities. He ran tough in some short yardage situations. I'd like to see him get going more in the passing game, but even the screen they called to him, Fields is so slow getting it out. Even the passes he completes, he's a second and a half late, which just limits the ability to run after the catch, and the touch and the feel isn't there. And he's, I've seen a decent amount of his career, and this is as bad, I think, as he's ever played, right? He could still run a little bit. He had a decent night running the football tonight, but when you're that bad of a passer, there's nothing you can do with it. And is he going to be here as a backup next year just because of the contract? Maybe. The Jets have so much money now, they could just eat it if they don't want him around, because he's kind of a tough guy to have as your backup because he's such a unique player where he's really more of a runner than a thrower. I would guess we're going to see a mix of him, Fields, and probably one Brady Cook start before the season ends. We've seen enough from Fields at this point. There's no he might get it back. Maybe he'll have one more random good game like the Bengals and Steelers game. But this is what he is at this point.
It's just so obviously a head issue. Even when he runs, he's deciding to run way later than he should decide to run. And by the time he gets out there, there's people closing in on him and he just has to sprint to the sideline and get out of bounds. And, that year that he had in Chicago, he was an alien. He was running all the time. He was an alien. He was unstoppable. And so Meek said it in the group chat tonight. When he was coming out of Ohio State as a prospect, it was a weakness that he could not check the ball down and he couldn't tone it down. He just wanted to push the ball, go deep, run, go crazy. He was electric, right? Yeah. And his head has been turned into mush in the NFL. And it's so obviously all mental with him. You just have to press pause. Have to.
Yeah. It's just not fair to the rest of the guys. I thought the O-line was fine tonight. Fine to good, actually. Doing their job as they always do. I think Mason Taylor played well, caught the pass thrown to him. Ruckert, drop aside. He is who he is at this point. But, bigger picture for the Jets now. People will now go back to everyone was freaking out about the tank stuff. And it's all right, they're 2-8. What are we really freaking out about here? They're right there if you're looking at the standings in that way. And I would still encourage Jet fans to make mental peace with the reality that they're likely to win a couple more games still. Like, I think between the Saints and the Dolphins and the Falcons, like there's a few more wins here. I think it's probably 4 or 5 now. I know a few weeks back I was like the range of outcome is 0-17 to 2-15. I think it's probably more like 4-13. I could see them getting to that 5-12, maybe even. But let's see. Pats are 9-2. They have the best record in football. So would it shock me if they were competitive against Baltimore? In many ways, I feel like Baltimore might be a worse matchup than New England, because sometimes Thursday night football is weird. I think it's probably a worse matchup, actually. But when you get through that, home for Atlanta, home for Miami, like there's going to be other wins here where we're going to have to get back into the never-ending tank wars. And I'm sure we're going to get another 10 days of Aaron Glenn being cagey about quarterback, because it's more of a discussion now with more time to pass. And I'll still say it's going to end up being 50-50 that they try Tyrod again. If his leg's healthy, we don't really know. I know he was technically the second quarterback tonight, but it's one thing to make him the number 2 and another to be like, all right, like he's going to get the full week of practice as the starter. And if he's going to be the starter, give him the full week of practice to be the starter, right? So he doesn't look like he did against the Panthers, where kind of look like cold, and that's what you expect with an old quarterback who gets pulled off the bench. So, yeah. I mean, as it sits right now, they're 2-8. We know what their remaining 7 are. What do you think their final record is going to be?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just touch on the Tyrod thing. I think his leg not actually being healthy and him not being able to come in and play in a game is probably the most logical explanation for all the press conference quarterback nonsense. Yeah. Like when you really strip it away, that's kind of like the Occam's razor of it all. It's just like, hey, I have an injury that I desperately need to hide because I can't tell you that all we have is Justin Fields and Brady Cook. Yeah. And so I'm going to not let Tyrod play, but I'm going to make you think it's a possibility for 4 weeks straight. So that actually is a pretty reasonable explanation. I think the range of outcomes is 3-6 at this point, and 6 is like the way high. I think you're thrilled if they get to 6 at this point, if you're not a tank person. If you are a tank person, you're probably furious if they get to 6. But, I don't know, man. I mean, now thinking about it, 6 wins would mean going 4 and what down the stretch? We have
4-3. What are there? 7 left.
Yeah. So maybe 6 is a little too much to ask.
If you're getting 6, you have one, you have like one wow surprise win. I don't think anyone's going to be like, oh my god, they beat the Falcons at home, or oh my god, they beat the Dolphins. You would need like we upset a Baltimore or a New England or a Buffalo, which if
that's
Tyrod,
my season over bet talking. I don't really mean that. It's 3-5.
There it is. So look, we have a mini bye, so we'll be able to mix in some more draft talk and coverage as we always do, as we ramp up previewing the Baltimore game. And again, not a disaster tonight. Always sucks to lose to New England. So the New York Jets are now 2-8. That's it. Thank you everybody for listening. Hopefully you bet on your John Mechie overs tonight as he got his first touchdown and you got another Fields rushing touchdown. But man, this passing offense is going to break our brains one of these years. Thank you. And we'll be back to talk to you soon.